This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglan.
Elk viewing tours, vineyards, zip lining, trout fishing, fall festivals, 52 state parks, Mammoth Cave, fall colors. Many things about our state say stay home next time you travel. We go inside outdoors with Pat Stipes with the Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism to see where the hot spots are as the weather begins to cool down. Plus some major news on the National Archery in the Schools program. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Hello, you're a really big fish.
Here's your trash.
What?
All the stuff you dumped on the ground washed down the storm drain and straight into my home.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Don't let it happen again, or else.
It's time we all did our part to stop polluting Kentucky's waterways. To find out how you can help, visit stormwater.ky.gov. Brought to you by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Uncle Chuck, what is fall?
Fall means football, but excitement doesn't end there. This is when Kentucky's outdoors are just getting started. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you lakes and streams are alive with fall fishing. And for many, the biggest game of the season is white-tailed deer. Get your fishing and hunting license and get your game plan together. This fall, take aim on a winning season at fw.ky.gov. Charlie Baglan in on Kentucky Afield Radio, and all who travel are not lost. Pat Stipes with the Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism knows a thing or two about the fun, hidden, thrilling, exciting, artsy, cultural, what else, natural side of the state that you probably should see if you haven't. Pat, I sit before you today a humble and envious man because you have the job I wanted 24 years ago, and I can't remember who had it when you got it.
Tim
Culver. And then you've had it since then.
Right.
So there's very little turnover in that job. And so the job you have is...
I have directed it mainly towards broadcast media. I'm not a writer, not an editor.
When it comes to travel in Kentucky, you're the go-to guy.
Yes.
And I take it anywhere in Kentucky you've been.
I've been to every county at least 3 times.
Have you been to every car race, every horse track, every...
At least once.
So you know what you're talking about. This isn't something you just read on the web and repeat.
No, I'll tell you, the first 12 years was spent doing nothing except getting in a car and driving. Every one of the 52 state parks, multiple times. Every county seat, every racetrack, every distillery.
That sounds fun, but it's certainly keeps you away from home, and that can be a stress.
Yeah.
It certainly can.
Yeah, when you're on the road 3 nights a week.
So traveling in Kentucky, there's one thing I wanted to ask you about before we talked about anything else, because I like this story. Walt Disney's influence on Kentucky's vacationing habits.
What the statistics started to say after Disney opened. We get the 2 to 3 day vacationer in the state. Years ago, statistics proved that families would go to Lake Barkley for a week. Now they go for 2 or 3 days.
A long weekend type.
A long weekend. But they go multiple times. So the visitorship has grown, obviously, with the population and mobility and with income has grown. It's the type of vacation that Disney affected all the way from Columbus, Ohio, all the way from St. Louis and to Huntington, West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia. That whole dome, an umbrella shape through the southeast. Think of the SEC schools. College sports schools. Everybody in the SEC and even north, including Ohio and some of the Missouri area, started to change their habits. They weren't going to the traditional cabin anymore. They were going to Disney, and they were staying a week. You had to go stay a week. Nobody could fly. You couldn't afford to fly your family, so you took the week down there. In Kentucky, we lost out on those week-long vacations that people took once a year. But what we have done is been able to exploit in a positive way the natural resources. That's really when Natural Bridge and Cumberland Falls took off and became more of a resort destination for 2 or 3 days. Then it did this kind of fun natural resource state park to go to and visit. It became a place to go and stay for 2 or 3 days in a nicer accommodation. You do that 3 times a year, it's the same as taking the 7-day trip that you used to take.
Certainly.
So, and we started to see, in a coincidental sort of way, we started to see a wraparound with gas prices several years ago. It started to happen and cycle all the way back through, except the motivator there was the high gas prices.
There was the one-tank trip concept that I remember you would talk about on the air.
When Disney's attendance goes down, Arkansas and Tennessee and Georgia and Kentucky visitorship goes up. It is a definite, you can see it happen. They're not both going to go up. That's not possible. They both can go down like they did in 2008 and 2009. But typically, the way it balances it is if Disney and SeaWorld and Universal are having bad years, Kentucky's going to have a good year.
Having a good year, I can see that.
Yeah.
If times are tough, then White Castle and McDonald's are going to have really good years,
That's right.
and the higher class sit-down restaurants aren't going to be as well off.
Yeah. Same thing works in travel, and you have to get there somehow.
Have staycations been a hit? Or is it just something you settle for?
It was a fad, but legitimate and credible. It was a great alternative to get people to do something in their own backyard.
And probably some things they have missed along the way.
For sure.
I was in Kentucky's Pennyrile State Resort Park not that long ago. Pam was with me, and on the way there, we were on the Western Kentucky Parkway, and we came across, she hadn't traveled the state as intensely as some of us. And she sees the sign that says Central City. She says, Central City, what's that? I said, well, you got the Green River Correctional Facility there. You want to see it? No, I don't care about that. I said, what about the Everly Brothers? They're from there. Really? And it seems like there's little hidden pieces of interest in pretty much everywhere you go in Kentucky. There's something else to see beyond the obvious. And we went by and saw the Everly Brothers Monument, got a couple of snapshots. It was like an extra thrill that nobody had really planned on. It seems to me, if you're talking about these 3-day vacations, it's sports season. If you want to go to a school and see a football game at Murray State, there's something else to do while you're there.
Right.
In Kentucky in the fall colors, festivals, what pops to mind?
Well, initially, the first thing that pops to mind is the bourbon industry. And folks would have to stay with me on this because the State Tourism Office has never, not one time, ever celebrated the beverage that is actually poured in the glass, so to speak, the consumption of it. It's just not our role. That's just not something that we would promote. But what we do promote is the legacy and the heritage and the industry and what it has meant to the state of Kentucky. Thus, September has been proclaimed as Bourbon Heritage Month. The only place you can find this one thing is in Kentucky. Kentucky bourbon. 95% of the bourbon in the world is made within an hour of us as we sit here today. So the Bourbon Trail, horse farms, agritourism are all major components. And adventure tourism, major components of what we do every single day. And so I would say with the bourbon industry in the fall, it's tops.
Agritourism, there's something I've seen, maybe it's been around forever and I've just didn't know to appreciate it, but I've seen the signs for vineyards. Whereas before, and I think vineyards and wine, I'm thinking somewhere out in California.
Right.
And the valley. I'm not thinking Kentucky, but it's here, and it's worth a trip to see.
It is. They have had to adapt and change. When Kentucky's first winemakers or vineyard operators got online about 17, 18 years ago, it was laughable. It was, oh, really? Wow. Here we go. New fad, creeping in from Napa Valley. But guess what? As people started to realize what Kentucky's heritage and legacy within the winemaking culture of the United States was, they quickly did an about-face on their laughable side of it and went, oh my gosh, they're legit. Yeah. It's why the bourbon's great. It's why a 1-year-old thoroughbred looks stronger for being born and raised in Kentucky than a 1-year-old in Maryland or Florida. The limestone, the soil, what it provides. The tobacco's always been good. What I'm saying here is that as people started to investigate the vineyard and winery industry, they realized that Nicholasville, Kentucky was the site of the very first location for the American Vineyard Society.
Pat Stipes with the Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism is the guest, so stay with us. This is Charlie Baglan. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Baglan, and we are back talking travel, Kentucky style. Kentucky is a lovely state to visit, even if you live here and think you have seen it all. Pat Stipes is with me. He's from the Kentucky Department of Travel. When we went to break, Patrick, you mentioned Kentucky's role in the wine industry. And in the U.S., we were the first.
The very first. No place else was growing the quality grapes in the country. Now, let's make sure we understand there were only about 16 states at that point. Industries that needed to be where fertile soil and groundwater tables, things were moving. Horses are stronger there. Wonder why. They're faster at a younger age. Nobody runs a 3-year-old that fast. Well, they do at the Kentucky Derby. Wonder why. Well, and the tobacco again, and the bourbon, the corn, everything seemed to be fertile and ahead of its time, and the maturation was much quicker. Well, let's try grapes. Well, you should, because this is where it all began for the American Vineyard Society in Jessamine County, Kentucky. So the legitimacy became apparent. Then grapes started being harvested. It's not it's not, from the ground to the bottle within, one season. They have to mature, and there's a process. Once locally grown grapes got online and in the bottle and started to age and became wine, people took notice. They have realized, and it's all been a very positive thing, they have realized that weekend concerts, either with local talent or bigger name, some vineyards can afford to bring in a B or an A-list level singer and artist. Art shows, live Shakespeare theater, incorporate local culture around your vineyard. They're show places. It's not just the 10 by 10 gift shop where you can pick up a couple of bottles of wine of that label and then be off on your way. People are encouraged to get wine and cheese, sit there, have a bottle of wine in a responsible manner, listen to some music, buy a T-shirt or a coaster, and tell their friends about it. So that's where tourism comes into play. It is a vital part of agritourism and Kentucky Proud. So if you're a vital part of those things, you're a vital part of the tourism industry as a whole. We have wrapped our arms around the distilleries and the vineyards and the horse farms that take, not just the horse park, but horse farms that take tours, because many don't, but some do. And we have squeezed them tightly because they have driven the numbers, revenue numbers for expenditures at $12 billion last year in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. They have driven that number steadily upwards, and they're owed a huge attaboy for that.
People may not be aware that this type of event or pastime exists and is close to them as it does. Is this a good spot where your tourism website, what is that address?
KentuckyTourism.com. Very simple.
That's simple. I've been on there. In fact, got a few notes before you came in, and it just looked like it went on for miles with the opportunities of things to see and do and festivals and events and agritourism.
Right.
So that's a pretty good first stop for anybody wanting to see what can we do this weekend.
It is. And the way that we relaunched that website some time ago, it's wrapped in leather like a saddle or a bridle or a harness. It has that Kentucky horse feel to it. And it's won some awards. It has been ranked number 1 by several travel destination magazines as one of the top websites, not only in the Southeast, but in the country for its design. So it's got texture. It's also very informative in that the interest finder, you put in your interest, and it will search out and bring to you on the desktop what best fits up the keywords that you've typed in. So horse farms and bourbon. You're going to get Three Chimneys and Woodford Reserve. You're going to get Buffalo Trace and the Kentucky Horse Park. It's going to group things back to the staycation. It's going to group things that to show you just how close you are to filling up a 2 or 3 day without even driving to the next 3 counties. You can stay within your county or an adjacent county and fill up 2 or 3 days. We've got people that are Franklin County, just one of the 20 counties, but Franklin County folks that have not been to the military museum ever. And perhaps many of them have never been to the History Center.
Driven past it and think, oh, that's nice, and keep driving.
That's for someone else.
It has to be for someone else, because if it's local, it can't be for me.
Correct.
If it's for me, I'm going to get in the car and drive 3-4 hours, and then that'll be cool. That's for me.
That's right. And so when Sonia and I go to Woodford Reserve and we do the consumer tour, I'm a nerd because I have to look around the parking lot and start looking at license plates. And we went about a month ago. One of the busiest days they had. It was a beautiful day. It rained all spring. And so it was a beautiful day. I talked to one of the tour guides, and they loved it. They love being busy because it makes the time go faster and you get more response from the crowd. And I said, I noticed that there were only 3 Franklin County plates and 2 Woodford County plates. And started laughing. I'm like, so business is good? And she goes, yes. You know what, honey? They're employees of ours. Everybody else is out of state. There was Arizona. There was New York. And I checked. I'm smart enough to make sure it's not an enterprise car with just some other, out-of-state license plate. These were legitimate registered cars from Arizona and New York and New Jersey and Philadelphia and different places, Pennsylvania, Florida, lots of Florida. Word has gotten out. It's a huge but understated part of the tourism industry. You can find it. If you're listening to the show and you want to impress that first date, just pick her up and take her to Woodford Reserve or Buffalo Trace. Go on the tour. They're $4 and $5. Some are even free. And you get a tasting at the end of it. And nice southern hospitality. And you see the smiles on faces from people from New Mexico. It makes you proud to be a Kentuckian.
It's a part of Kentucky, a part of something that's right here close, and you just never really knew to appreciate. Just sort of just took it for granted or overlooked it. Mm-hmm. We're doing this show in the fall. Fun and the summer is done. Mm-hmm. Kids are all back in school. What types of trips are being taken in the fall with so much else going on?
Everything I talk about today is going to fit within even the most modest bank account, because a lot of parents are wondering, how am I going to take the kids anyway for fall break? Which fall break? We never had fall break when I was growing up. But I've just spent all this money on back-to-school supplies. Part of the website, back to the website, again at KentuckyTourism.com, is you can find everything from free to $1 admission up to the $220 a night hotel, luxury hotel in Louisville. So let's say that you have young kids. They want to go to Kentucky Down Under, down in the cave region. Dinosaur World is there. Kentucky students can get in for $1. Now, you have to check our website and then go to Dinosaur World to make sure that the timing is right. But typically, school kids during the school year can get in for $1. They'll love it. The National Corvette Museum is there. Very modest admission fee. Then there's Kentucky Down Under, which is a working Australian outback with sheep shearing, dog shepherding. There's wallabies, kangaroos, the whole thing. Lots of folks, they drive past it on the way to Nashville or on the way to Bowling Green for some reason, and they just go past the cave region.
I've been there. I know it's cool.
Yeah.
But I can see how somebody may think, it's just, a little sideshow. I'm glad more people are taking advantage of that. Seems like in the fall, this is harvest time. So there's always going to be those harvest festivals.
Right.
Those are scattered all across. Any really good ones come to mind, Pat?
What I hope is that the Sorghum Festival in West Liberty, where the tornadoes hit, I hope it's back up and running, because it has always been one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite festivals to go to just because of the time of year. The Hatfield and McCoy Festival just finished up in Pike County. Woolly Worm Festival in Betaville, just outside of Natural Bridge in Lee County, is one of the better fall festivals because it's so quirky. They're actual woolly worm races. So what second or third grader is not going to get a kick out of that? And really, what do we do it all for? We want to laugh and have fun and get away from the work environment. So we go to these festivals just to have fun. we have, on average, about 26 festivals each weekend in the state of Kentucky. When you have 120 counties, and 20 on average, 26 of those counties are going to be having a festival, that's active, and it's important, and it's great for the bottom line. In fact, 2 or 3 festivals seasonally allocated throughout the calendar really is what keeps the tourism office open. It's what keeps the county judge and the mayor feeling good that their communities are vital and that they can draw people in. There's a buttermilk festival, a mountain mushroom festival. Berea has one called the Spoonbread Festival, and that's obviously a marker towards Boone Tavern's famous delicacy, spoonbread. So a community comes together, the local hoteliers, moteliers, eateries, the tourism chief, the mayor, the county judge, they sit at a table and go, we need a festival. We haven't had one for 4 months. Every year we need to have the what festival? They look back in their history and their heritage. If they don't have a Civil War battle that happened, they move on to something else. What are they known for? Who's their favorite native daughter, native son?
You know, as you say that, I can think of festivals named for just such people and places. Pat Stipes with the Kentucky Department of Travel is my guest. And, Pat, we hear music playing, so we need to take a break. Our fishing report is just ahead. Then more on Kentucky travels for fall. Fall colors. Can't wait. I'm Charlie Baglan. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. Kentucky Afield Radio, we are back. My name is Charlie Baglan. More with Pat Stipes in this half hour. First, I have a little bit of NASP news. A couple of noteworthy items, NASP being the National Archery in the Schools program. Since May, there have been 3 NASP tournaments championships. We had the National Championship in May, the World Championship in June in St. Louis, and in South Africa, it was the very first all-nations NASP tournament. All nations meaning the very best archers from across nations that participate, United States, Canada, Namibia, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. This year, for the first, it was in South Africa. I got an email from a participant, Timbri Snowball, who came in second in the nation back in May. And she says, Mr. Baglan, I want to say I had an amazing time with the USA All-Star team in South Africa. It was an amazing experience, and I gained so much from it. I got the opportunity to introduce archery to kids that had never touched a bow. I made a ton of friends from all over South Africa, as well as the United States, and I came home a part of a first-place team, and individually, she was the runner-up female. Thank you so much for your part in NASP. It is doing so much for so many. And secondly, dear National Archery in the Schools program, we're delighted to confirm that you have successfully achieved a new Guinness World Record for the title of largest archery tournament. We would like to congratulate you on your record-breaking achievement. You are officially amazing. Signed, the record management team of the Guinness Book of World Records. Not bad for a little sport that was developed right here in Kentucky. This was held in Louisville, Kentucky at the NASP National Tournament in May, and an official attendance was 9,426. That breaks the previous record, also set by NASP, of 7,804. If you have a son or daughter that is participating in NASP, be proud. Our fishing report.
Hi, everybody. This is Fred House with the Northeast Fishing Report. Fall fishing throughout the district should really be picking up now that the water temperatures are getting cooler. Now would be a good time to fish district streams for smallmouth bass. Some seldom mentioned streams to fish for smallies include Christie and Triplet Creeks in Round County, Middle Fork Red River in Powell County, and this is just below Natural Bridge State Park, and Fleming Creek in Fleming County. Fish just below and above any riffle complexes you come across, as well as any deeper pockets with moving water near the riffles. Try using Rebel Craws or small inline spinners around the riffles and smaller jigs with plastic grubs in deeper holes where there's current. Now would be a good time to fish for muskie in district streams such as Kinnickinnick, Tigers Creek, Red River, Kentucky River, and the Licking River. Stay safe and good luck.
This is Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. Crappie and catfish reports are very good at most lakes. Yatesville, Dewey, and Fish Trap Lakes are all having good catfishing with jugs or rod and reel. Shad, chicken liver, and cut bait fished in shallow water is working. Best numbers of large fish seem to be coming from Fish Trap Lake for both channel and flathead catfish. Keeper crappie have mostly come from 6 to 8 foot depth using minnows, but expecting some of these fish to move shallower in lakes that have turned over recently. The lakes that have turned over would be Buckhorn, Fish Trap, and Dewey Lakes. Shad are being targeted, so spinner baits and crankbaits are working. A few hybrid striped bass are also in these creek mouths at Fish Trap. However, better numbers of hybrids were being reported from roadbed edges in the main lakes.
Hi, this is John Williams with the Fishery Report for Southeast Kentucky. At Lake Cumberland, striped bass fishing remains good. We have some fish still in deep water, anywhere from about 50 to 80 feet on the lower end of the lake near the dam. Most of those fish running 24 to 28 inches, but also a few larger fish thrown in the mix. Also seeing some stripers and hearing reports of stripers in the jumps. That should increase as the water cools down, so look for a few fish that way. Elsewhere in the lake, a few walleye being picked up on crankbaits or by trolling crawler harnesses anywhere from about 20 to 30 feet deep. Trout stocking starts in early October. We'll be stocking Rock Creek, Bark Camp, and Cane. Those are all catch and release streams, artificial baits only, beginning October 1st. We'll also be stocking Cedar Creek Lake in Lincoln County with trout in early October. As always, good luck and good fishing.
Kentucky Afield Radio, more travels with Pat Stipes around Kentucky after the break.
What's a giant fish doing in my backyard?
I brought a few treats for your pool, like pesticides, antifreeze, and some yummy motor oil. Because you dumped this stuff down the storm drain, I had to swim in it. Now it's your turn.
It's time we all did our part to stop polluting Kentucky's waterways. To find out how you can help, visit stormwater.ky.gov. Brought to you by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
My name's Charlie Baglan. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Pat Stipes is on with me this hour. We're talking about places to go in Kentucky. You can't think about autumn without thinking about fall colors and the color fall. I've noticed on your website there already have been some fall photography weekends.
Right.
But where I'm looking out the window, I can't imagine that there's been that many fall colors appearing. Unless I'm wrong. Maybe it's down in the mountains, the higher elevations, maybe. But the fall weekends, where are some of the more pristine, more colorful, vivid places around the state that you recall in your travels?
Ron Vanover with Kentucky State Parks listens to the show, so he will be happy to see me the next time in the office after he hears it to correct me. So I'm going to go with what I think I know. State naturalist is always really good about correcting. Ron knows his business well. What I have gathered over 20 years of doing this and talking about fall festivals and fall foliage is that you want to go, if you want the best color, you got to go where the hardwoods are. The native hardwoods around water basins, the rivers, the creeks, old growth forests like Daniel Boone. That's where you're going to find the best color. Now, I've seen some color already, but it is also species driven. There's going to be a few trees that are going to change in the next week or two, and they're going to be yellow, and they're going to be interspersed through all this green that we're still going to have because we had so much moisture in the spring. But these trees are just a little earlier, and then shed their leaves a little earlier, change colors earlier, and shed their leaves a little earlier. I would say the palette of colors is best in eastern Kentucky, even starting as close as Madison County at the Daniel Boone National Forest and through Berea and the Pinnacle, moving up through Red River Gorge area. That's where I have found it to be the most diverse. The most brilliant, I think, is along Bluegrass Parkway, just prior to getting into Elizabethtown. There is a 4-mile stretch that I would put up against anything in Maine, New Hampshire, Martha's Vineyard, Virginia, Pennsylvania. It is, granted, only about a 4-mile stretch. It is just like it's a painting. I don't know how there's not more accidents because people just get consumed by it. It's only about a 2-week window, but it is absolutely brilliant. The forested areas down at Pine Mountain and Dale Hollow, in those areas, in Cumberland Falls and the Cumberland Gap area, that whole area of the state, spectacular. Western Kentucky is typically 2 or 3 weeks earlier than what Eastern Kentucky is.
Well, let's look at a calendar and say, when will the peak colors be roughly? When does that start?
We used to say the second week of September and run it through the end of October. We found that that's not true. So to answer your question, I would pinpoint that at about the 10th of October, running through about the 25th of October. Now, here's the difference. Last year, we had a stretch of 3 weeks of no rain and 101 temperatures, give or take. I didn't mow grass at my house from July 3rd until the end of September, and mowed it one time.
So it's moisture-driven.
Moisture-driven.
When these colors will appear.
The difference this year is we had the third wettest spring, and now third wettest July, if I look at it correctly, that we've had in history. What that tells me is there's a lot of moisture, 17 inches above in some areas, above the normal underground. So these leaves are tight. They're on the branches. They're going to stay there, barring a huge windstorm. These leaves are going to be on the tree. They're going to change. And even when they change color, they've still got so much integrity to them and strength to them. They're going to stay on for a while. So I think we're looking at a late color season, but a lengthy color season to happen in the Commonwealth. And that means money spent at state parks and at festivals and at the photography weekends.
So you're talking a couple of weeks either side of Halloween, perhaps?
Correct. Yeah. There have been years where there has been good color still on the trees post-Halloween.
Your website covers the fall colors, where and when they're peaking.
It does.
And so to find that, when they go on the website, what do they look for?
Type in that interest finder. Type in fall foliage, color fall.
COLOR, second word FALL.
You may even find it as one word, as a takeoff on our program called Color Fall, which tracks the brilliance factors throughout the state. It will lead you to the regional, we use the state naturalist to help us, and the state parks naturalist at each state park to help us get a percentage of what it's 60% here in Western Kentucky. It's kind of like an ag report. The red buds or the this or the that or the whatever are at 60%. We see project peak in 2 weeks. We actually get a farm report, if you will, from the naturalist at each state park, and then we compile the information, and that's what makes up our color fall. We send that out to TV stations and to radio stations on a weekly basis. As the consumer, we can decide, well, we've got a wedding and a school function and something else in October, but that last week of September, let's see. Oh, it's really good. It's really good in northern Kentucky, around Kincaid or one of the other Big Bone Lick. It's really nice up there. Maybe we could just jump in the car and go up there. So that's how it helps. If it doesn't fit your schedule to go next week, you can see where it's 60% this week. It's going to be 80 by the time you're ready to go.
Well, that's good to know.
Right.
Going out about and looking at our natural resources, if that's hunting or fishing or taking your camera and taking pictures of leaves or natural bridges of the state,
sure,
all sort of leads into adventure tourism.
Right.
And I was looking at the list of adventure tourism. You may have heard that, may not exactly know what it is, but you have an idea. Mountain biking, RVing, elk viewing. Now, there's something I'd like for you to hit on. Paddling, whitewater paddling, is in a kayak or canoe, fishing, horseback riding, caving, rock climbing. These are all examples of adventure tourism. As we look at fall, what adventure tourism comes to mind?
I think because of the train I just talked about in East Kentucky, adventure tourism lends itself to that multi-interested outdoors woman or man. Somebody that likes to take their kayak on the top of their Subaru or whatever they drive, and they want to park it. They want to also be able to rock climb after they're finished, or maybe they want to go the kayak route after they finish rock climbing. They just want to hike. They want a book and maybe a glass of Kentucky wine that we talked about some time ago. And they want to be able to relax with just maybe a mid to moderate exercise. Kentucky's the best place that we know of. We're partial in the State Office of Travel and Tourism. But I say the best because of our temperatures this time of year. Look, it's already getting pretty chilly. Here we are in September. It's getting pretty chilly if you go north of, say, Columbus. Even Columbus is going to get some. No, yeah, everybody's going to get a 70 or 2. But south of us, it's still relatively hot. So we really have the right temperature to be able to do adventure, bike riding and hiking and all of that. You can still get in the water. You can still go hiking and have fun. You're not going to be spending a whole lot of money with the outdoor thing. And that's one thing that the outdoor adventure industry has done a good job of educating us. We don't expect people to spend great deals of money as if they were staying at the Seelbach or the Brown. They're about enjoying the outdoors and spending, yes, some time and some money. That's what keeps the industry going. It's not about that, though. That's a component of the tourism industry that needs to be talked about briefly, is that adventure tourism is really not a cash cow-driven component. That's not their goal, and that's not the focus of that industry, much like it is with others. I mean, if an agritourism farm can't sell their product, they're not going to be in business for a while. So adventure tourism in Kentucky can mean really, really grade 5s, heavy lifting, if you will, down in West Kentucky. If you get into the land between the lakes area, there's some creeks up here in central Kentucky that you can get some 3s on. Certainly down at Cumberland Falls, Sheltowee, you can get with it if you want to. It's a great way to stay in shape, not spend a lot of money, stay in your own quote unquote backyard. And folks, probably if that component of the tourism industry above any other, do it because they want it. They are vendors within that industry because they're outdoors people. They like to stay in shape. They like to be around like-minded people. You can go down to the Elkhorn Creek on any given Saturday and Sunday and see the cars with the kayaks and the canoes on top of them, getting ready to be loaded to get into the water. That's a really important piece of the tourism industry. Jane Bashir, our First Lady here in the Commonwealth, made that one of her main initiatives when she came on board as the First Lady, is that adventure tourism has got to help Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky, and we really think that it has.
Pat, we got to take a break. We have you for a few more minutes. When we come back, 2 more topics on the fun list in Kentucky that are very new to the state that have proven to be crowd pleasers. This is Charlie Baglan in with Pat Stipes from the Kentucky Office of Travel and Tourism on Kentucky Afield Radio. Charlie Baglan back on Kentucky Afield Radio. A few minutes remain with our man who has the best job in the state, the spokesman for the Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism, Pat Stipes. We're talking about things you can do this fall, as if fall football games and hunting and fall fishing hard enough. We have saved a couple of the really fun things for last, and we begin with elk viewing tours.
Yes.
That is something relatively new in the last, 20 years or less since elk have been returned to the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny Wiley State Resort Park, I know at least for one, offers a tour. You are up and at 'em well before the sun.
Right.
And you are on a bus with some other adventurers, and they take you out to elk country, and you can see these elk in their natural Kentucky habitat, blowing steam out their nose that's foggy and
bugling.
It is something to witness.
It is, and we, again, might take some of this for granted. Look at the face of a 3- and 4-year-old or a 3rd or 4th grader watching a bugling session happen, watching, as you're saying, the morning steam come out, and the sheer size of a bull elk at 6:30 in the morning. It's as big as a car, but it can move faster. It's a magnificent thing to see. That is also something that I think Fish and Wildlife ought to be patted on the back 1,000,000 times for introducing the elk back into its habitat in Kentucky. It's now the largest elk herd east of the Mississippi, I believe.
It is.
And when you see a family from Cleveland, Ohio, which I did several years ago, was at Buckhorn when there was an elk tour in the morning. And this family from Cleveland had a reason to be in Hazard, some family genealogy searching and things like that. There were 2 children, that 7 and 10. That's a lifelong memory, if you could see the look on their face. And granted, I will say that there was a bull and some cows, elk, some of the female that were 10 feet from where we were, up close, talking about right there. I mean, we actually had to be very still. The picture taking and the look on their face was much like it would have been for Santa Claus. Memories are made in Kentucky, and got to get the kids off the Xbox and off the computer and get them out to see the things that we've talked about here today.
Something else new that I haven't seen a lot until very recently that's in Kentucky. I haven't done it yet, but I want to, is zip lining. Now, I don't know if they call that adventure tourism or something just to go and play and do for an hour, but to me, it'd probably be worth the drive. Even if this were 2 or 3 hours away, I'd still want to go and do it, because I want to do it. But zip lining, how many opportunities are there in the state to zip line?
Many now.
Are there really? I was thinking Mega Caverns in Louisville. We'll give them the plug.
Right.
But where are some of the others?
Well, there are many that are yet to be promoted from the state level, that are still in that process of tightening the lines and realizing what they've really got. There's probably going to be 5 or 6 more than what I'm getting ready to get into, 5 or 6 more coming online, so to speak, this time next year, because it's hot, it's huge, it's not a lot of overhead. You can zip line over the canopy of the Daniel Boone National Forest in the Red River Gorge.
Really?
You really can.
So where do you start and where do you... It has to be connected to something.
It has to be connected to something. I would suggest that folks go to Natural Bridge, State Resort Parks website, or Kentucky Tourism website. Type in zip lining, and come up on your screen will be the zip lining opportunities throughout the Commonwealth.
You've done it.
I have done mega caverns. You can also zip line in the Barron County area through a canopy of a forested area around the cave country.
Do they have brakes on them? Can you slow your speed down or adjust it in any way?
Not the ones that I've been on. And you're talking to somebody that is deathly scared of heights and not having that secure feeling. So it was really a leap of faith when I did mega caverns. When I did mega caverns, it was a bucket list thing for me.
Similar to bungee jumping.
I just don't do well with that type of thing. And but I did it. I completed the course. It's safe. It's a thrill for sure. And it is one, if you're listening and you're one person that doesn't like Ferris wheels or roller coasters, you're going to have to be persuaded to do the zip lining. Now, for instance, mega caverns, I did that. It's indoors. It's in a cave. It's in a cavern. And just featured on television as one of the most outlandish adventures that you can do inside on the Travel Channel on one of their shows, Extreme Rides, I think it was.
So zip lining can be done indoors, in caves, in caverns, mega caverns.
They are the only one to the extent that they are able to do it with the length and speed that you can get going on your zip of any place in the world. Now, there are some in the Amazon. There are some outdoor zip lines that go that Red Puerto Rico and the Dominican that go for half a mile. You're on the line for half of a mile.
Holy smoke.
There's one that takes 4 minutes. You're on the zip for nearly a mile and a half, straight down. And then it swoops, goosenecks up, and that's its natural break. By the time it's governed for a 200-pound person, so you're going to go faster or slower depending on where you are in relation to 200, and you come up on the platform. So at Mega Caverns, it's indoor, it's dark, but it's lit, strategically lit with lights. So I thought if I'm ever going to zip line, this is the place to do it. I'm not really sure I could do Daniel Boone National Forest or the Cave Country zip lining. I don't think I could. But when the parking lot has 500 cars in it, and there's 300 people waiting in line for the other 200 that are on the zip lines to get finished, somebody's doing something right. That's adventure tourism. That is certainly a revenue generator.
That's one way to see the outdoors, too.
Yeah.
Now, probably no hands-free to take pictures while you're doing that.
Lots of helmet cams. Lots of helmet cams, yeah.
You are on the road a lot in your job. A little question I have to ask everybody, or do ask everybody. Do you text and drive?
No. I don't even do it in my personal car. And I sure don't do it in a state vehicle. I have found, and I'm glad you ask everybody that question, because the more awareness we can get for it, the best. No texting.
Good boy.
But I got a 16-year-old I'm working on.
Good luck with that one. Pat Stipes, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
KentuckyTourism.com is the website for everything travel about our state. Florida and Kings Island and Indianapolis Motor Speedway are great, but you'll find a lot of fun right here in the bluegrass. The grass is always greener where it's blue, I've said for a while. We are out of time. I'm Charlie Baglan. Join us again in a week. We'll go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.